and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the Bill of Rights, why they were needed, and especially how they reflected various ideas of the era that they were written in. Let's learn more about them. Most people know what the Bill of Rights are, being the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, but I also think that many people believe they were simply always going to be a part of the Constitution, which is not the case. I could go into a lot more detail, but many politicians at the time were nervous that the Constitution listed the powers of the government, but not the specific rights of the people. The idea of any state power to form a stronger union made them uneasy, and their concerns were valid. They'd recently spent 8 years fighting a strong central government that seemed to oppress them at every turn. A group known as the Anti-Federalists wanted to make sure that that couldn't happen again, and as a result, James Madison crafted these first 10 amendments, also known as the Bill of Rights. So the First Amendment protects 5 basic freedoms: religion, speech, the press, and assembly, as well as the right to petition the government. In terms of religion, many colonists, including Quakers, Episcopalians, and Presbyterians, emigrated to America specifically to escape religious persecution from the established Church of England, making religious freedom a critical concern for them. Americans had also learned in colonial days that a free press was their best protection against abuse of government power. While the British government did not explicitly take away freedom of the press in colonial America, they did heavily restrict it through laws like the Seditious Libel Act. This made it a crime to publish anything critical of the British government or monarchy, and effectively silenced opposing voices and limited what people could write in newspapers. The British government also took away the right to assemble through the Coercive Acts, also known as the Intolerable Acts, of 1774. One specific part of this act severely restricted the power of town meetings and placed the colony of Massachusetts under stricter royal control, taking away the colonists' ability to gather and to protest against the British policies. During colonial times, Great Britain had used a standing or permanent army to keep order in the colonies. In 1774, King George III and his ministers blocked the import of arms and ammunition to America, and the British also began disarming the colonists in 1775. They would use tactics such as entrapment, false promises, banning imports, and even shooting people who carried arms. When the colonists took matters into their own hands and gathered up weapons and stored them in conquered Massachusetts, the British marched from Boston to take them, and this led to the Battle of Lexington and Concord, the shot heard round the world, which started the American Revolution. Now, because of this, Americans were suspicious of standing armies. They preferred to rely on volunteer state militias, which led to the Second Amendment. Before the American Revolution, Great Britain had forced colonists to provide food and housing for British soldiers, specifically with the Quartering Act. The Third Amendment gave Americans the right to refuse such requests, at least in times of peace. In order to enforce laws against smuggling, English authorities made use of writs of assistance, which were general warrants authorizing the bearer to enter any house or other place to search for and seize prohibited and uncustomed goods, and commanding all subjects to assist with this. This led to the Fourth Amendment, which protects people and their belongings from unreasonable searches and seizures. The Fifth Amendment protects against self-incrimination and guarantees due process of law. The British practice of using coerced confessions and forcing individuals to testify against themselves during the colonial period, often through unfair trials and intimidation tactics, played a major role in prompting the American colonists to include this amendment. The Sixth Amendment lists a number of rights that are designed to provide accused persons with fair trials. Many of the rights listed here had been in practice for many years throughout the British colonies, yet there were still some issues. During colonial times, royal interference with the jury trial was deeply resented, which is why they wanted to make sure that these rights were protected. The Seventh Amendment says that, in all but most minor cases, people involved in a civil case have a right to a jury trial, as well as the fact that no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined, which means that after a jury decides the facts of a case, no judge can overrule that jury's decisions. Before the Declaration of Independence, the British government claimed that Americans had to obey laws enacted by the British Parliament, in which Americans had no representation. Taxation without representation. Americans could participate on colonial juries, and these juries became a way for the Americans to govern themselves. As tensions with the British rose, juries would refuse to follow the Haitish British laws, especially laws in terms of collecting taxes. This led to the British restricting the availability of jury trials in the American colonies, which was a major factor in the colonists' decision to declare independence from Great Britain in 1776. The Eighth Amendment protects an accused person's rights before and after trial. It was influenced by British legal traditions, and the amendment's prohibitions against cruel and unusual punishments, excessive bail, and excessive fines are all based on the English Bill of Rights. The Ninth Amendment says that even though certain rights are listed in the Constitution, other rights and liberties not listed there are also retained or kept by the people. This was put in to address certain fears that expressly protecting certain rights might allow the infringement of other rights. Finally, the 10th Amendment says that powers not given to the national government by the Constitution are reserved to the states or to the people. This addressed the fear that rights that were not specifically in the Constitution would be lost. So there you have it, historical reasons as to why the first 10 amendments, or the Bill of Rights, were included. The amendment process has been very important for our country. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like a video on the historical connections for the other amendments. As always, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.